Welcome to our final reflection for Advent. Over the first 3 weeks of the Advent season, we have thought about the themes of hope and peace and joy. Today we come to love. In our services on Sunday, we heard Christina Rossetti's marvellous words, "Love came down at Christmas." Whatever else happened at the birth of Jesus, and a lot did happen, at the heart of it lies a demonstration of God's love for his people. The famous words of John chapter 3 remind us of the reason that Jesus was born. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son. Do you know that you are loved? Sometimes we may not feel loved. We may not feel loved by other people when they mistreat us or are unkind. We may find it hard to love ourselves when we know what a mess we have made of things. We may not feel loved by God when there is so much going wrong in our world and maybe in our own lives. But the birth of Jesus reminds us that we are loved. God knows that we mess things up, we get things wrong, we don't treat others as we should, we don't treat God as we should, and yet he loves. He sent his Son, Jesus, to be born into the mess of a place where the animals were kept. He sent Jesus to be born into the mess of our lives because he loves. God so loved the world that he gave his only Son. We may or may not feel loved, but the fact is, we are. And it is as we acknowledge that, as we accept God's love for us, as we receive God's love for us, that we can reflect God's love for us. We reflect his love back to him. That is what worship is. An act of love given to God because he has loved us first. In our worship we may sing of his love, that love divine, all loves excelling, that love that will not let me go. But as we do so, we're offering our love to him. And we reflect God's love to others. When we know that we are loved, then we can love too. Paul tells us in his letter to the Corinthians that if we do not have love, then we are nothing. And so we draw towards the end of Advent, and we draw towards the end of the year. And what a year it has been. I look back to this time last year with our carol services and our nativities and all the people that came to join us here in our churches. And it all seems so distant now. In different ways and to different degrees, this has been a tough year for us all. We're not through it yet. There are more tough times to follow, of that I'm sure. Some will never return to the lives they once had. But in the midst of that, as we have heard this Advent, we can find hope. We can find peace. We can find joy. Why? Because God loves. It is his love that lies at the heart of everything else of which we have spoken. I hope that you're able to celebrate Christmas in some way this week, even if it isn't quite as you had planned or hoped. And remember that God so loved you, that God so loves you now, that he sent his only Son. Have a happy Christmas.